Please describe, O Sutta Goswami, please describe those topics of the Lord by Maharaj Parikshit, whose intelligence was fixed on liberation, attained the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of Garuda, the king of birds. Those topics were vibrated by the son of Vyasadeva, Srila Shukadev Goswami, Srila Shukadev. Okay, so this is, Srila Prabhupada has given us a lot in this purport. There's so many things that we can focus on. It's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful verse because there are many points that we can meditate on. And that's always nice when we get a verse that we can think about Krishna in many different ways. So this is Srila Prabhupada and how he, in how he was giving us these different verses, these different texts. They are actually meant, these texts are meant for us to be able to remember Krishna. And so that specifically is what this verse is talking about. Before I go into the verse though, I wanted to just thank the devotees that are here. Very much appreciative of who's here. Varaha Prabhu. I see Jagannath Pandit is here. Hare Krishna Africa is, Salika Prabhu. Of course, Loka is here, Sahadev is here. There's Devaki Priti is here. Thank you all so very much for coming on the class. It's always nice when we have association of the devotees to hear, especially this verse today, because it's talking about Sukadev Goswami giving how Sukadev Goswami enlightened Maharaj Parikshit, and how now Sutta is being asked to share this with the assembly, the sages. All the sages want to hear more. They want to hear, tell me about this. Tell me more about this. Tell me about these activities. Tell me how Sukadev Goswami shared what he shared with Parikshit Maharaj. So they're eager to hear. And so this is one of the foundation of our Krishna consciousness movement, one of the foundation of us making advancement, one of the foundation of us having association of the Lord and the Lord's devotees is to be able to hear about the Lord. That's a seed that Prabhupada told us that we need to, we need to imbibe this mood of hearing, and we also need to share this mood of hearing. So this verse specifically deals with how Maharaj Parikshit heard, what made him able to hear, what was some of his qualifications to be able to hear from Sukadev Goswami, and then again, what is the qualifications of Sukadev Goswami to share this knowledge to Maharaj Parikshit? So these are important aspects of our theology, that there is impersonalism and there's personalism. And so when we read these texts, we hear of the personalism because it's people. We hear of the person, Sukadev Goswami, that spoke to the person, Parikshit Maharaj. And so all the Vedas are specifically aimed at this conclusion in the SRIMAD Bhagavatam to help us to understand more about personalism. Everything that was written by Vyasadeva, at the time when Narada Muni came to him and he expressed some concerns, he was realizing there was something missing that he had not done, which was to share about the personal aspect of the Lord, to share pastimes of the Lord. And so, of course, he was encouraged by Narada Muni to do that, because that is the foundation of our philosophy, is that we are personalists. And so as personalists, what we do is we give people intimate understanding about the personality of Godhead. And that's what Srila Prabhupada did when he came to America, is to bring this intimate knowledge to us. And those persons in the very beginning that were open to hearing, then they were able to imbibe this knowledge, and they're able to pass this knowledge down. So there's several points, like I said, that's made in this verse. And And, it's just such a beautiful verse. So this first point about personalists and impersonalists, this is important. Chaitanya Charitamrita, the fourth chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita, as a Lila, explains to us about the impersonalists and the personalists. The Krishnadas Kaviraj, he goes in depth to help us to understand what is an impersonalist, and in that, I believe it goes on in maybe I think chapter 6 or something, or maybe chapter 7, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, he's approached by Advaita impersonalists, and he's able to defeat such impersonalists by knowledge of personalism. And so this is, for us as devotees, it's really key to understand what is the difference between a personalist and impersonalist, and to understand that they're both transcendentalists. I remember as a new devotee learning Krishna consciousness, I always thought like the impersonalists, they just, they were like, I won't say exactly bad people. However, we didn't think of them very kindly. We just thought, oh, they're impersonalists. They have no knowledge, no understanding, no anything. However, as we mature a little bit in Krishna consciousness and we read more, we start understanding the impersonalists also have some understanding. It's not like they're bereft totally. They're spiritualists, and they are called transcendentalists in many cases. Of course, their conclusion, as we know, is, as Prabhupada says in the purport, their conclusion is to attain the Brahmajyoti. And, I believe anyone, after getting Krishna Consciousness 101 is you're not the body, and, chant Hare Krishna. And then when you start getting into Krishna Consciousness 102 or 103, you start learning about the impersonalists and the personalists. That's like basic, knowledge for any devotee that's aspiring on the path of bhakti. We are taught by Srila Prabhupada in the very beginning that there are these two paths, and the difference between these two paths. So Advaita impersonalism can be summarized into 4 different areas. Prabhupada speaks, he didn't, in this verse, he's not actually explaining about the impersonalists. This is explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So for the impersonalists, they believe that Brahman is real or true. They do believe that. And we also believe that. So we believe, yes, Brahman is real. It is true. There is, yes, the fact that the Brahman effulgence exists, it does exist. And also, they believe that the material world is false, the impersonalists. And we also believe that. As personalists, we also believe the material world is false. It's not real. It's temporary. And therefore, we don't become, too much engaged in the material world. We do what we need to do in the material world, but we understand that it's a temporary place, and it's a place for us to get out of. And they also believe that the soul or the living entity is Brahman, right? Spirit. So we believe that. We believe that also. So again, the point is, impersonalists, it's not that they don't have knowledge. They do have knowledge. What they don't know is this last one, or they don't, they may know, because I have met impersonalists that do know. However, they don't make it a priority in their practice to share this. They don't share it with others. And that there is, they say there's nothing beyond Brahman. This is what the impersonalist says. There's nothing beyond Brahman. But we know as personalists that there is something beyond Brahman, that beyond the Brahman effulgence, there's a Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's the Lord. And the Lord is engaged in activities, and the Lord has loving associates, and the Lord is constantly engaged in different pastimes, and the Lord expands in so many different ways to engage in his pastimes. So we know that as personalists, as devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This, the impersonalists do not accept in most cases, especially the Advaita impersonalists. They totally are fixed in their position of it's not this, it's not that. No, they totally accept that there cannot be, or there is not a personality that is behind everything that is happening, because they think that minimizes Brahman. And so we as devotees, we understand by Srila Prabhupada's mercy and by the mercy of the Parampara that this is not a fact, that no, yes, it's true that all of these things that the impersonalist says, though some of those things are true. However, there is a person. Now, the interesting part of this, to know that there is a person that's beyond the conception of the impersonalist, what they think requires a seed to be planted. And that seed can only come from someone that understands personalism, can only come from someone that understands that there is something beyond Brahman. Now, so much of this is explained for us when Krishna is speaking to Arjuna. We just, as students studying Bhagavad Gita, we learn what Krishna has said about the impersonalists. And that gives us, as I said, Bhakti 102, we start learning, what did Krishna say about the impersonalists and how do we understand them? Okay, Prabhu, thank you so much. I'm so grateful that you came. And yes, that's one of the areas of hearing. When we hear, we got to go and give, we got to share. You know, we can hear and hear and hear, and it's nice to be hearing, but we got to give it, whatever we share. So thank you so much. What are you doing? Please share. Unmute yourself and just share with us how you're sharing Krishna consciousness, Prabhu. Salika, we can't hear you. Okay, we can't hear him. Saha?
Yeah, Salika, it seems you're talking, but nobody can hear you.
Yeah, because we're talking about personalism, although I'm giving this class, we're
Hello,
Okay,
can you hear me
now
now?
we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was just taking permission to leave because I'll be representing Gurudev mission in UN African Union combined activity, which is centering around the International Day of Tolerance. The program is being organized under the auspices of collaboration with United Religious Initiative, which I'm a global trustees, and it's involving United Nations, African Union government, and Economic and Social Council of African Union. So it's a joint program globally representing different organizations and different participants. So I'm representing a movement in that forum. So it's starting in about a few minutes. So that's where I'm going. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Salika. And thank you for sharing that. It's important. You know, tolerance is something that the world needs to understand. And giving tolerance from a personal perspective is very important, because so much of what you're going to hear there is from an impersonal perspective. So thank you for being a representative. Thank you for representing Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol Prabhu. And I did see another devotee on here that I have not seen for years, Tulsi Prabhu and his beautiful wife. I'm just so grateful to see these devotees. So anyway, back to personalism. This is what Krishna consciousness is all about. Astanga Devi and their beautiful children. So Bhagavad Gita tells us all about personalism, impersonalism. If we really want to get into that topic and that theme, because the world really is so many impersonalists, people that don't even realize they're impersonalists. Even sometimes we hear these different traditions, you know, and they have even when they have some personal understanding, their personal understanding is very limited. And then it kind of gets a little mixed, you know, because then some impersonalism creeps in. For example, my daughter, she's a Christian minister. And whenever I speak with her, we can have so many beautiful, wonderful conversations because she's very deep as a Christian spiritualist. However, when we get to talking about the deities, that's where the boundaries goes up. And that's when I need to really become very aware of being a personalist and how to communicate. Otherwise, the door will close. And so we don't want the doors to close when we communicate with people in different faiths, different traditions. However, it is important to understand that there's a certain place where they stop in terms of their realizations about personalism and understanding, the Supreme Lord. Even though I'm going to divert a little bit, I remember being I actually was in Ghana. I was in Ghana, and I remember visiting a community. I believe it was the Awe community, Awe community. And they are, many of them are Christians, and they worshiped deities. I remember going and visiting one of the places that had an altar, and they had deities that actually looked like Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra. I don't know in their consciousness. I'm sure they didn't have that knowledge, that awareness. However, they did have an awareness of worshiping someone, which was, they were made of, I believe, wood. So there is some understanding, but there's no depth of understanding. There's no understanding like we've been given by Srila Prabhupada. And so that's when people go into that whole mood of idol worshiping. Oh, people, when you worship the deities, it's idol worshiping. However, traditional cultures, not even just in Africa, but in different traditional cultures, they did have an awareness about worshiping some aspect of the Lord beyond what we can understand. And that did have some form. They did have that understanding. So this thing about impersonalism and personalism, it's a very deep topic, and Srila Prabhupada has covered it tremendously. I don't want to just stay on this topic, but if we look at Bhagavad Gita, if we look at 8.5 in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says here, after attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries because they have attained the highest perfection. And here he's speaking about once a person really passes this impersonal understanding, these great souls, if they're in devotion, if they're practicing devotional service, they will come to me. And we know that there are personalities, that have attained Krishna, that were impersonalists. We hear of that. We hear of that from the scriptures. We hear of, for example, the 4 Kumaras, how when they smelled the tulsi leaves, they became personalists. Okay, whoever at the end of his life puts his body remembering me alone, remembering Krishna alone, they attain my nature. Okay, so yeah, of this there's no doubt. So again, this is reminding us about personalism. Antikali, yeah, reminding us that beyond this understanding of the impersonalist of Brahman, there is personalism, and that we, as devotees, that we can only attain through hearing. And hearing from, Prabhupada mentions in this purport, he mentions there's 3 different types of devotees. And we can hear from all of these different types of devotees. Sometimes we think, okay, the Prakriti devotee that doesn't have any, they're, in the temple, but they may not have no real knowledge, no real understanding. They may even worship the deity, but they don't have no real knowledge. They don't understand deeply what they're doing. Even those persons, we see that sometimes in a temple, someone can come very new. Maybe they first time coming ever to a temple, and a devotee that might be classified or labeled as a Prakriti devotee, if they're just able to tell that person, Krishna is God, or chant Hare Krishna, or reach Bhagavad Gita, that's what I'm trying to do. That's how I'm trying to learn. Even if that person does that, and that newcomer they really hear that, that person can actually make an impact on a newcomer's heart. So a Prakrita devotee, again, you know, it's not someone that we look down on or we minimize or make them small, even though they don't have so much knowledge, so much understanding. The Prabhupada takes the time to explain that in this purport, the different levels of devotees, different levels of consciousness. However, they're all devotees. And then there's Madhyam devotee, and Prabhupada explains that. So that person, you know, is aware of the knowledge, aware of the devotees, aware of non-devotees, and they're in another level of consciousness, and they are able to impact people's hearts, maybe a little more deeply, possibly. Well, according to the scriptures, they are. And then, of course, Prabhupada explains that we need to hear from a Mahabhagavat devotee, someone that's realized Krishna, someone that's understanding the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. And so Sutta Goswami and Sukadev Goswami, they were in that category, as well as Parikshit Maharaj, the hearer of this amazing knowledge of Krishna consciousness. And then, of course, just this last point on this impersonalism, because that's not really what I want to focus on. I want to focus on hearing Krishna's pastimes, you know, hearing about Krishna, hearing Krishna Katha, because that's what the sages are inquiring about. They want to know, like, wow, tell us how Sukadev Goswami spoke to Maharaj Parikshit. They want Sutta Goswami to share this with them. So in this last text, I believe it's Bhagavad Gita 12:1, Arjuna asks, which is considered to be more perfect. So now Krishna tells us which is considered to be more perfect. We're hearing this from Krishna himself. Those who are always properly engaged in your devotional service, or those who worship the impersonal Brahman, or the unmanifested. And so of course Krishna answers and tells him those who worship the Lord, right? So Krishna is now, he's explained about the personal and the impersonal and the universal, and now he's describing all the different kinds of yogis. So the point here, and then here Krishna, Prabhupada is elaborating the two types of transcendentalists. So in this verse, we get the understanding, or we get the knowledge directly from Krishna himself, as he shares this with Arjuna, directly from the Supreme Lord. So now someone might still have some doubt, and that doubt can only be removed by the process of hearing. And of course, hearing and chanting the holy names of the Lord. Of course, there's 9 processes. However, hearing and chanting the holy names of the Lord are the 2 most important aspects of being able to move through the different doubts that may come, even after someone hears about the difference between the impersonalists and the personalists. And so we want to look at that. What are some of the ways that we can encourage each other with hearing Krishna Katha? Just like the sages, the reason they're asking they're asking Sutta Goswami is they're wanting to know. They've been doing this yagya, and they're sharing with Sutta Goswami, we're doing this yagya. Well, really what we want, really what we know is important in this age is to be able to hear. And we want to just sit and listen. And so this listening is so key, even in our mature world, even this is more than 10, 15 years ago. There is an understanding in the secular world, especially in companies, and I'm sure Varaha, everyone knows about this. Varaha, he kind of studies things like this. Varaha Prabhu. In some of the secular businesses, they do trainings for their staff, especially their CEOs, to learn how to listen. It's like everywhere, in every place that is where people are trying to lead other people. They understand that it is important to be able to listen to people. because that's the only time that things can move, right? That's the only time that people can make changes in organizations, is to be able to listen. And so, of course, this word listening comes from the fact that the scriptures that is teaching us and sharing with us. It's important to hear. Now, transcendental hearing and material hearing are different, of course, they're different. You know, we're hearing every day all kinds of things in the material world that has no benefit at all, absolutely no benefit. However, when we hear transcendental subject matters, it changes our hearts. And when we hear these transcendental subject matters about the Supreme Lord, then we make progress in our spiritual life. So some of the glories of hearing Krishna Katha is that it qualifies us to see the lotus feet of the Lord. And so what was the reason why the sages were making these inquiries, why they were so inquisitive to learn? Because they wanted the same benefit that Parikshit Maharaj got, which was to attain the lotus feet of the Lord. And so that's one of the glories of hearing Krishna Katha, is it helps us to remember Krishna, remember the Lord, how to talk. So yeah, there you go, the real key to job success. Thank you. Wow. Sahadev, you're on it. Yeah. And actually people pay thousands of dollars, you know, to learn how to listen, just to listen to someone. You know, recently I did a training, 6 months training in chaplaincy, how to be a chaplain. And one of the main foundational understanding of being a chaplain is simply to be with people and listen to their stories. Because when someone is leaving their bodies, they have accumulated, not just from this life, but past lives, you know, so many stories in their lives, you know? And then at the time of death, we have to face those stories. Whatever Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita, right? What's that verse? Whatever, at the time of death, Antikaleva Sevanam, at the time of death, whatever we have done at the time of death, we'll experience whatever we've done in our life. Can't remember exactly what that verse is. I know the essence of the verse. In a way, that verse is help us to understand that whatever we do in our lives, that at the time of death, we're going to need to face. And so this is one of the things about chaplaincy, is to help these people, you know, at the time of death, when all of this, they're so confused with all of these different memories that's coming up in their head, and they don't know what to do, and how they have no clue how to process these memories. And so a chaplain, one of the duties of a chaplain is to listen, just listen. And of course, ask questions, relevant questions, you know, open-ended questions to help them to talk more about their memories that they've acquired in this life. And if they have no understanding of God, if they had no understanding of God in their life, it's very painful, very difficult, those memories, for many of them. So this mood about listening for us as devotees is to help us to remember the Lord. And this is exemplified by Maharaj Parikshit, right? He knew he was going to die. It was a time of death, and he wanted to remember Krishna. We see this with our beloved Kadamba Kanana Maharaj. You see this with His Holiness Bhaktitirtha Maharaj. So many devotees that leave their bodies at the time of death, they just want to hear about Krishna. They don't want to hear anything else, right? So this is the mood. Gita 8.5, thank you. Yeah, I know that's somewhere. So this mood of hearing helps us to remember Krishna at the time of death. And that's why we need to be hearing now, because at the time of death, the memories that we acquire now is what's going to come up. They're going to come up. There's no doubt. I've seen that. And so if we don't hear about Krishna now, then it becomes really difficult, very difficult at the time of death. And so what is our goal? What is it? Why do we want to hear? What is the purpose of hearing? What is the purpose of it? You know, so this is what Maharaj Parikshit is teaching us. The purpose is to attain the lotus feet of the Lord. We want to have a relationship with Krishna. This is personalism. We see what the relationships are like here. Look at Tulsi Prabhu hugging his child. What a beautiful picture that is. So Mother Yashoda has that relationship with Krishna. She calls Krishna like that. Just imagine, you know, that a person, well, of course, Mother Yashoda is in an eternal relationship with the Lord. However, we can have a parental mood with the Lord. We can develop that mood with the Lord. So this is the reason Parikshit Maharaj, that lotus feet of the Lord, to just attain to be a servant at the lotus feet of the Lord, be with the Lord. This was his mood. Another reason for us to hear Krishna Katha, to hear about Krishna, is to avoid miseries, and hearing gives us real liberation, right? We hear that Shukadeva Goswami was impersonalist, and that's a whole story. And again, I want to go back to that point that impersonalist doesn't mean a person isn't spiritual. You know, actually, Sukadeva Goswami was quite realized. However, when he heard the hunters chanting those verses, chanting the verse, that caught his attention, because in that verse was some realizations, or they didn't have the realizations, I don't think, but they were sharing the verse. They were singing the verse that was given to them by Vyasadeva. And when they heard when Sukadeva Goswami heard that verse, because there was some talks about Krishna in it. Actually, the second verse that he heard, when Sukadeva Goswami heard that from those hunters, that second verse had something about the story of Putana in it. And so then Sukadeva Goswami wanted to hear more about that. Like, well, who is this Lord? And what is it that, you know, where did you get this from? And then, of course, those hunters had gotten it from Vyasadeva, Srila Vyasadeva. So then Sukadeva Goswami went back to his father, Vyasadeva, and that's how he learned about, that's Vyasadeva, of course, then spoke SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. That's how he became a personalist, Sukadeva Goswami. And there are other personalities, Bimal Thakur, he was an impersonalist. He was actually initiated as an impersonalist, and then he became a personalist. And even in our lives, we can see so many of us came from impersonal schools. And then we met a devotee who either gave us a book, or we just saw a devotee. You know, just to see a devotee sometimes can just make us like, whoa, who's this? What's this? We change our lives. So hearing Krishna Katha teaches us about what real liberation is. Not liberation as an impersonalist, but liberation as a personalist, as a devotee of the Lord. Real liberation. Real liberation means to be able to attain the lotus feet of the Lord, to really get and have a relationship with the Lord. Hearing Krishna Katha also helps us to remove our anarthas, you know, and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur tells us about all these different anarthas that we accumulate lifetime after lifetime, and we bring them in, you know, we bring some of them in this lifetime. So when we hear Krishna Katha, it actually, it purifies us, you know, it removes the contamination from the heart. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches us this. He says in his Shastakam prayer, he gives us these 8 verses. He tells us, you know, that in order to remove these anarthas from the heart, one has to become first humble. And that humility was what Parikshit Maharaj exemplified for us. You know, so that humility goes together with hearing. If a person is humble, they can hear. If they're not humble, it's difficult to hear. And then one last point I want to make, and then I'm going to close, is that this hearing Krishna Katha is the topmost activity of the bhakti process, right? Hearing and chanting. Hearing and chanting. And these we can all find in the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, first and second canto. Prabhupada's so kind, because Prabhupada didn't know how long he was going to be here. So he gave us everything in those first 3 cantos, in the first 3 cantos of SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. So in this first canto, we can find all of the reasons why we listen, why we need to develop this mood of hearing. We can learn from the materialists how important it is. And of course, we can learn from our path of bhakti, from these great acharyas that have taught us, that have shown us by their example, why it is important to hear Krishna Katha. So my question to all of us is, how connected are we to hearing Krishna Katha? You know, we can read the Bhagavatam, or we can read Bhagavad Gita. How deep is the readings that we do in terms of, you know, us really having a taste? Like I think of Vaisheshika Prabhu, right? And how he is so exemplary of having a taste for hearing, and how with his example, he gives this to so many people. You know, he inspires so many people to take time to really, really just hear from the devotees, however we choose to do that, whichever way, whether we hear tapes, whether we listen, you know, on videos or whatever way, however his mood is, like his life is just to hear. Recently, I was sharing with some other course the other day that during the Kartik month, he was reading the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita. He read the whole CC. He was reading 6 hours every day. And now reading is one thing. Imbibing the reading is something totally different. So what helps us to imbibe this knowledge? One of the things that, and I'll close with this, one of the things that I experienced personally that's helped me, you know, to imbibe whatever little I have imbibed, is to really distribute books. You know, Christmas marathon is coming up. It's a beautiful time of the year everywhere. Distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, I cannot, you know, say enough about how important that is to help us to remember Krishna, to help us to hear Krishna Katha. I remember so many past times, you know, when I first started my own Krishna consciousness, and my early days, of course, they were in West Africa. And I remember so clearly how just by distributing books, you know, to the people that were coming, that inspired me to want to read the books and to learn what was in the books. Because the people that were coming, the devotees that were coming at that time in Nigeria, they weren't devotees yet. They didn't know, well, they are devotees. They didn't realize they were devotees. When they were coming, they would question, you know, they would come back. And I've said this before, but they would come back and they would ask on page so, paragraph so, it says so, explain it, you know. And so if we didn't really read the books, it would be so difficult to explain. And then we would have challengers always. There was always the Christians that would challenge, and, you know, those persons that were, you know, new impersonalists, you know, they're new on the path, and, you know, they wouldn't be in some other group, you know, the Baha'is, this, that. Baha'is were usually favorable, but some people, you know, they would come and they would be very challenging. So we had to, you know, read the books to distribute the books. And of course, when you read the books to distribute the books, then some of that, because Krishna's mercy and grace is there, Krishna sees that, oh, you're really having a desire to help others. And because that's what pleases Krishna, Krishna says, anywhere where we're gathered together and we give, you know, we chant his holy names, and certainly giving his Srila Prabhupada's books is a way of chanting Krishna's holy names. Because Krishna sees that, then he empowers those personalities, you know, to connect deeper with themselves and with others. So back to that question, how deep are our engagement in hearing Srila Prabhupada teachings? You know, how deep are our engagement in really spending time just hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, or hearing Bhagavad Gita, or hearing Chaitanya Charitamrita, because the goal is to really hear about Krishna, to hear about Krishna so that we can, like Parikshit Maharaj, attain Krishna's lotus feet. That's the real goal of our lives, not the other things that we might be involved in. Those things are impermanent. Death brings death. So I want to close here, and I want to open for anyone to discuss. Yeah, please let's discuss Krishna Katha.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Mother VRAJALILA. Thank you very much for the class. We've been missing you for quite a while. And we thank Guru and Krishna for letting us have your association once again. So dear devotees, anyone with a question, comment, please indicate by using the hand emoji or your human hand, and you'll be asked to unmute to ask your question. Madam Wright, I think you asked a question, but instead of me attempting to answer, I actually have a question. There is a study done that scientifically proves that reading books in black and white in ink is more beneficial than reading on screen. And in today's world, most of us have become electronic people. We have all our books on electronic gadgets. So, I mean, in fact, one of the studies also reveals that it even has adverse effect on our eyesight. So, my question is, in that sense, do you think that there is also going to be a difference in hearing from a person directly in close proximity than hearing the person's tape? Of course, we know the spiritual master, there is no difference between his physical body and his words. But I just want to know, don't you think that it is more beneficial hearing from a person directly, like personally in touch, than hearing a recorded audio of the person? Hare Krishna.
Jai Haribo Prabhu, Hari Hari.
Hare Krishna.
Well, historically, we know that everything was passed down, right? That's parampara. It's all passed down, and it's passed down through hearing. And things weren't written before even written. So what we have from our Vedic scriptures is, of course, Vyasadeva wrote, but then he heard also from Narada Muni. So we know the importance of hearing from a person Bhagavad, right? That's a part of our philosophy, to hear from the person Bhagavad. And so that's very key to our hearing. Now, in terms of the age of Kali and how the age of Kali has advanced, and how persons that are devotees of the Lord, people that are aspiring to really attain the lotus feet of the Lord. So they're in this age, and in this age means technology. It means technology. That's what this age is about. It's a technological society that we know is impermanent. We know that we'll go back to what we originally had. We know that this is what's happening, right? There's a gap right now of technology, but then technology is temporary. It's impermanent. It will not last. And so, of course, Krishna, being kind and merciful for everyone, he can appear in technology. He does appear in technology. And, because Krishna is always what? He's Bhaktavatsal. He's there taking care of his devotees, always. He's protecting his devotees. He's always helping the devotees. So if that's all a devotee have to learn about Krishna, to hear about Krishna, then certainly Krishna, depending on the intention of that devotee, if the devotee is using that, just like Prabhupada, right? When he came to America, he used many things he never used before, as far as technology was concerned. And he used that, his intention was so that Krishna, can come through whatever the technology was. He himself was a pure soul. So, of course, again, it depends on our intention and our qualities, our qualifications in our hearing. At the same time, though, I think people do have we do have certain preferences. Personally, myself, I can hear more or I can internalize more in my heart when I read something from a hard copy as opposed to a technological device. And I think that's a part that has to do with perhaps my age and my time of being, I don't know how long I've been on the planet before we started getting into all the technology, I think maybe it might have something to do with that. Because I see the younger generation, they're able to really utilize these technology, totally. So I think it's not this or that, it's this and that. It's how do we hear personally, and if we have to use technology, use technology. So yeah, that's kind of my understanding. And Krishna can come through anything. Krishna can come through anything. So yeah. I mean, everything is going on by his arrangement. I mean, anyway, Maya's doing everything by his arrangement. So Maya's arranging technology now, but Krishna, he can supersede this technology. So I think it's all depends on the person's intention and the person's qualities, their qualifications. And yeah, they want Krishna, Krishna will come. That's my understanding, Prabhu.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate this and that rather than this or that. So whatever could be used in the service of the Lord is all good. Thank you so much.
Yes, sometimes I'm really I have to get people to help me because I don't have so many technological skills, and I get ideas of things to do all the time, every day. But Tia Tamar send me something that I could do, and then I'm like, I don't have the technology. I don't have that knowledge of how to do that. Then I have to think, I got to find somebody to help me to do that. So, yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Anyone with any question, please, devotees?
I'm going to talk to Varaha Prabhu because I know he's always busy doing something, but I just want to appreciate him for sending all those 10 things that he's been sending out.
Oh, the daily nuggets.
And, I've been reading them. Yeah. So I was looking at the one on reflection, I think, reflection and critical thinking. Yeah, so I thought those were really interesting. I think JP has his hand up.
Jagannath Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the class, Mother VRAJALILA.
Thank you, Prabhu, for being here.
I'm not sure I have a question, but it's a comment. Haribo Astanga, good to see you over there. And Tulsi. See, I was trying to make a connection between when you were talking about technology and your question about how much are we hearing and getting a taste for studying Shastra. And So when you were asking that question, I was thinking, well, the more we can apply what we read, then that can help us get more of a taste, because it becomes more internalized, like you said, more real for us because of the direct experience. And that's what Gurudev gave us, the Applied Institute for Applied Spiritual Technology. So he gave us so many technologies. And you mentioned Vaisheshika Prabhu, and I heard a story recently where he was along with some devotees on a book marathon one day in San Francisco, in California. And in San Francisco, it's very cloudy often. So on that day, the whole day, he was distributing books. And the day was cloudy the entire day. So the next day, he woke up with sunburn. he was like, how could I get sunburn when it was cloudy all day and no sun? And so he looked it up, and he found that is the potency of the sun. That even though there may be clouds, the sun's rays still come through and have their impact, and you still get benefit from the sun. And so he was equating that with when we read the Sastra. No matter how cloudy our minds are, when we read, something is coming through. Our consciousness is becoming purified, So if we can regularly read, not just read, but study, then we have, it's coming through, and it'll show up in our realizations and our discussions and how we're seeing Karma is reciprocating in different ways throughout our days. Sorry, I don't have a question, but
it's okay. That's a nice realization. Yeah, thank you. And the thing about, like, you gave that nice example of the sun, nice analogy. One of the ways, one of the technology that Bhaktitirtha Maharaj gave and also lived was to share what he heard. That was his living expression of hearing, and how he himself put himself in jeopardy in order to share what he heard. And, I was sharing this with someone yesterday. We were reading together, and I was sharing with this devotee that I remember when Bhaktitirtha Maharaj, our spiritual master, when he first got diagnosed with cancer, he did not want to amputate his leg. Totally did not want to amputate his leg. And he wanted to do natural cure, natural treatments. He could have amputated his leg in the very beginning, and he could have gotten some allopathic treatments, and perhaps that would have made him stay on the planet longer. We don't know. However, he chose not to. And I remember when the devotees in Russia kept sending so many letters and all different kinds of requests for him to come to Russia. He then decided, of course, the cancer was also spreading, but he decided that he would then amputate his leg. What was the reason for him amputating his leg? Simply to share what he had received from Srila Prabhupada. No other reason he would amputate his leg. And so he then amputated his leg, and I watched him, those of us that were near to him, he had so much pain because, the nerves in the foot, once it's cut, so much pain trying to learn how to walk with that prosthesis. And he really, you would see him struggling. He was determined that he was going to walk with that prosthesis. The only reason he was doing that was to go to Russia to help those devotees, because at that time they thought they really needed him. And so, of course, we know he couldn't make it. He didn't go. But that determination to share is what I learned from Bhaktitirtha Maharaj. He will take any risk. He will put his body in any kind of jeopardy, any kind of situation. He will use whatever the situation is, no matter what it is. He will use criticisms. He will use whatever just to share what he learned and heard from Srila Prabhupada. And that's something that, this is the mood of those pure souls, those pure devotees. They are not stopped by anything. And that's like Parikshit Maharaj, he's this perfect hearer. He's hearing, he's okay, I'm gonna die. They could have, he could have had that actually when that snake bird, was what's his name, Taksha, whatever his name was, I can't remember. But anyway, he could have been stopped from, biting Parikshit Maharaj. Actually, he had to take another form, to really get to Parikshit Maharaj in order to bite Parikshit Maharaj. So the point is, Parikshit Maharaj, he was just like, no problem. Okay, this is what it is. This is what it means. Now I can hear about Krishna. Now I can hear about Krishna. And then Sukadev Goswami just, being that person to just be able to just spend that time to just explain all that we are learning now, right? If it wasn't for Sukadev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit having that kind of determination to bring Krishna, of course, Krishna arranges everything, but to bring Krishna to us, then where would we be? So I learned that from Bhaktitirtha Maharaj very early in my Krishna conscious life. Whatever you get, you give. And he would always tell me, whatever you learn, as soon as you learn it, teach it. Teach it. Even if you think you're gonna mess up, you're gonna make mistakes, whatever it is, teach it. And so I pray to really imbibe some of the mood that he had in terms of sharing. It's just incredible personality. And that's what we learn. That's what we learned from these great personalities. It's great Prabhupada, right? Heart attacks coming here just to share, just so we could hear. So thank you for that. Yeah, and yes, and Vaisheshika, he's another example. He's not stopped by anything, nothing. Just his determination to share Krishna Katha is beyond sometimes what I can understand.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. Jagannath Pandit Prabhu, thank you for sharing. As you were sharing, I was very much struck with awe and appreciation how real devotees would learn from anything and everything, But Madam Raj, I have a question, and I have a question from the text, because if I should put the text on the screen again, it is, they're saying, O Sutta Goswami, please describe those topics of the Lord by which Maharaj Parikshit, whose intelligence was fixed on elaboration, attained the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of Garuda, the king of birds. Those topics were vibrated by the son of Vyas, Sri Shukadev. So this is the sages of Nanesharanya speaking to Sutta Goswami. And they are saying that Maharaj Parikshit's intelligence was fixed on elaboration. I cannot, in my very, very shallow understanding, seem to grasp how that could be the case, that Maharaj Parikshit had his intelligence fixed on elaboration. From what I have read and heard, Maharaj Parikshit was already liberated. Devotees of the Lord, they we just read, I think yesterday, that the pure devotees of the Lord, they are not even interested in a liberation. They are not interested in going to the heavenly planets. Maharaj Parikshit, he saw Krishna even while he was in mother's womb. So when he came out, he was always looking for Krishna, and he was very much dedicated to Lord Krishna. So how come that these sages are telling Sutta Goswami that Maharaj Parikshit had his intelligence fixed on a liberation, and after some time, then he attained the lotus feet of Lord Krishna? My little understanding is that right from birth, he had attained Krishna. If you can throw some light on this, Hare Krishna.
Very bold. Thank you, Saha. Thank you so much. Yeah, so just like, well, let's first look at who Maharaj Parikshit was, right? So we know that Krishna saved him in the womb, right, from Uttara. And we know that as a child, yes, he was already protected by the Lord. But remember, Parikshit Maharaj also went on to being a king, right? So as a king, he developed those also worldly things that you do as a king. Still, he was fixed on the Lord, which is why he could want to hear, which is why he could accept, right, from what was happening with Shringi. He accepted it because he knew better. He understood, even though he had been engaged in that field of, you say, of being a worldly person as a king. He was described as one of the best kings ever to rule the planet. So when we talk about liberation, there's liberation in terms of the Brahma Jyoti, in terms of the impersonalists, and there's liberation in terms of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when we are exploring liberation, and this word Prabhupada used it sometimes interchangeably, where he says, okay, liberation, he wanted liberate, he was fixed in liberation. He understood that he was not his body. He knew that ever since he was a child. So he understood that he would get liberated from that body. And Sukadeva Goswami liberated him even more with the pastimes of the Lord. Another way we can understand this is Sukadeva Goswami himself, who was an impersonalist, right? When he got out of the womb, as soon as he got out of the womb, he just left. He just left his father. And remember that pastime, I think Prabhupada says something like that in the purport, that pastime when Sukadeva Goswami is passing and he's seeing these girls, and these girls are like, bathing in the water. And Sukadeva Goswami just kind of, kept running, kept leaving because he wanted to leave. The father's chasing him. And then the girls, they just saw him and they didn't react. They didn't respond or anything. They didn't react to Sukadeva Goswami, but they reacted to to Vyasadeva. And then Vyasadeva stopped to ask them, like, how come? Like, my son is like younger than me, certainly more attractive, everything. And you girls did not react to him. Like, what is this? Why is this? And then the girls said, well, Sukadeva Goswami, he didn't even like deal with us like girls. He didn't even think about us like girls. He just had, like, he was pinpointed in his direction to get away from his father because he was running into the forest. So he didn't even think about them in any way, any form. It's like, okay, they're there, but like Arjuna and when he shot the arrow, right into the eye, he was focused. However, Vyasadeva, he told them they were young girls. And so the girls explained, but you saw us as young girls. So you have, in your mind, you're thinking we're young girls. So you actually are more conditioned in that sense. No, how do you say, nothing happened for him with those girls. But he was an impersonalist, right? He was fully realized, he was fully focused, he was impersonalist. He did not understand the personal aspect of the Lord. So then his father, who was going to be his helper, to get him to understand the personal. And remember, just because I'm going back in that past time, remember, Krishna himself came to Sukadeva Goswami in the womb, just like he came to Parikshit Maharaj. He came to Sukadeva Goswami in the womb, and he told Sukadeva Goswami in the womb, don't worry about Maya. I'm going to protect you from Maya. Maya won't touch you. So the Lord had come to Sukadeva Goswami, but yet he is described as an impersonalist until he heard those verses describing Krishna, and it awakened again that desire to know the personal aspect of the Lord. And then in that way, he was brought back to his father, because his father was the one that originally gave the verses. So somebody could say, well, Sukadeva Goswami was already liberated. He was liberated in an impersonal aspect. But then how do we understanding the personal understanding of the Lord? He was liberated to be able to understand personalism. That's a form of liberation also, personalism.
Thank you so much. Oh, so much. Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. I appreciate it.
Again, going back to this and that, we often think liberation means one thing, but it means this and it means that. So sometimes we think like that. It's got to be this or that, right? We compare a lot. That's just material way of thinking in life. And that's why what Varaha shares is so important. Critical thinking is so important, because if we're not critical thinkers, well, liberation, let me explore that more. What does that mean? Does it mean just that or what? And then as we do, then Krishna in the heart with mercy and grace, he gives us, maybe some more understanding. And that comes by hearing. Hearing other people speak about it. So what do we do? Liberation, I'm confused about that. Let me go find out. What did so say? What did so say? What did, who's talking about this? Let me hear more about that. And that way we might get, we can get clarity. But it requires intention and it requires desire to seriously hear some of these things and be critical in how we hear them and know, okay, that does not make sense. You gotta find another way to understand this. Yeah. There's a lot of things in these verses that often don't make sense because I might not have, as you know, the security to understand them. As you know, that it requires that to understand. We know that from hermeneutics. However, liberation is something that I somehow, because that comes up so much. Yeah, so much. And Prabhupada talks about it so much. So we're liberated in that we're personalists. We're liberated in a personal way. We're liberated by understanding personalism. Is a person that experiences Brahman, or one experience Brahman, are they liberated? Yeah. Brahman relation, Brahman effulgence, that's their liberation.
Well, thank you so much, Mother. We don't want to keep you too long, but if anyone has a question, please do that before Mother leaves. And Shima Prabhu, if you're there, we'd like to hear from you too.
Yes.
I hope you are not on the street. You are at the temple.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Dandava Pranam Mataji. Gurudeva goes to Prabhupada. And my respectful obeisances to all the devotees. Thank you very much for your wonderful class, Mataji, and for appreciating the little things I'm sharing on the WhatsApp group. Thank you for your appreciation. Yes, like you said, best way to learn is to always share. And in the life of preachers, when you get inspired by something, you want to repeat it to others because you're feeling very much inspired by that, and you want to also inspire others with it. So that actually what makes preachers. Everything you get, you don't feel very comfortable keeping it to yourself. You feel like everybody should hear this. Everybody should know this, So, and the more you share that, the more you also come to realize how much people value that treasure that has been given. So when you were asking, how do we really, how do we feel when we hear Bhagavatam, or how do we go deeper? Now, I just remember there, just recently, we have two classes on Sunday. We have Sunday, Bhagavatam class, and then later we have, kind of Bhakti Shastri. And then some of the devotees who attended the two classes. So one of them was asking, when we're hearing the Bhagavatam, we just feel so blissful and it's so nice, and you just forget all your sorrows and you feel so. But then after that, you go away and then things start happening and then you forget. So our question was, how do we remain, in that mood? That what we are hearing is inspiring us. We feel so blissful, like, there's nothing better than this. So she was asking this question, and I said, well, so that is just keep hearing all the time. Don't stop hearing. Just keep, after the class, play the tape again, or if you're doing it, you're not doing anything, take the book, read. That is the way to remain in Krishna consciousness. Keep hearing all the time. Keep fixing, drinking the nectar, and then Maya will never touch you. So thank you, Mataji. This is some experience to share, like you asked us to share. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. And as you were sharing that, I was also reflecting on how hearing takes many different forms. Hearing means seeing Krishna in everything. That's how we practicalize it on a daily basis, our hearing. It's like I'm watching Tulsi and Astanga, and I see that they're preparing their amazing donuts, which I hope they come and bring some here to Gita Nagari sometime soon. But what they're doing is that they are taking this amazing gift that they have to make these donuts, and they're distributing these donuts as prasadam, which is a form of hearing, right? So we hear by the book Bhagavat, and we also hear by the activities that we do on a daily basis. And that is a way we can practicalize our hearing, because sometimes we can become like devotee gyanis, I'm hearing, every day I read Bhagavatam every day. And so beautiful, but how do we practicalize it on a daily basis? Sahadev has to be with, elder people some are dying, people he has to give medicines to. Does he see the medicine in Krishna? Does he see Krishna in the medicine that he gives these people? Does he see them as spirit souls? It's like I had a doctor call me the other day, and the doctor was saying, there's this something that's going around right now. I don't know. There's always something, but they had no beds and this is affecting children. So she was sharing with me, there are no beds for the children. And she was just really like very anxious, disturbed, because, she's a doctor. So she, they're turning kids away. There's no way for them to be in a hospital. And so then I was like, okay, how do I help her to hear Krishna right now? And so trying to help her to move through that distress that she was experiencing. I said, okay, so when you go to your patients, the children you're taking care of, see yourself as like Mother Yashoda taking care of these children, all these little children. They're in the child form. So see them like little Krishna in them. See Krishna in them. And you're like Mother Yashoda that has to take care of them, and just to lighten it up a little bit and to let her remember, like what, these impermanent situations that we're going to face in this life, we can't let them just devastate us. We just can't. So we got to bring Krishna in it some kind of way. How do we bring Krishna in it? Because otherwise we'll be devastated. Maya is, she does her job very expertly, very expertly. So she will always arrange a way for us to have some way to be distracted. However, any little thing we hear, and I've come to understand that any little thing that we hear from the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, any little thing can be applied every day. I see that it can be applied. And so we just got to find ways to apply it. And so you gave me an opportunity, Vahaprabhu, to thank these devotees that are applying what they heard outside in the world, because that's needed. And Krishna is expansive, so he does it in different ways. It may not be that I just tell you, oh, Bhagavatam says. No, it may be that I show you, take some of Krishna's prasad. Yeah, that's a way I'm showing you. Or, you're in a hospital and, there's a person that's just really, really ill, and maybe you make them smile, that's Krishna. When you think of Krishna's smile and you make people in the hospital smile, that's Krishna, that's HARE. So that's how I understand hearing also, to be expanded outside of the books.
Hare Krishna.
See Sati Devi. Sati is in, here she is. Oh, she turned off her screen. Okay. Okay, there she is.
Sorry.
No problem.
Press the
Just
buttons.
seeing
Hare
you
Krishna.
and just really appreciating that you're here and just seeing you, just being nicely engaged. We're really grateful.
Okay.
Thank you. I hope your husband is okay.
He's doing well.
He's doing well. Sati's husband had cancer, so he's well. So yeah, it's all these things are going on all the time. So how do we see Krishna? How do we remember Krishna in everything? Like everything. Like I want to take your 10 tenets for Raha and I'm going to Christianize it. I know you can do that. However, I thought I was going to do that for the class today, but I thought maybe not. But another time, just Christianize all of those things that you said. See Krishna in everything, in every one of those 10 tenets. And I think Jagannath Pandit Prabhu, he wrote something here that's important before we close. The 6th of the 10 tenets of Gaudiya Siddhanta, the living entities in the spiritual world are liberated. Thank you for validating that, Jagannath Pandit Prabhu. Krishna, sometimes, like my Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, spiritual master, sometimes Super Soul would say something to me, but then I'll question Super Soul. I'll doubt Super Soul. I'm like, Super Soul, I hope I'm not making a mistake when I say that. I'm questioning Super Soul really, but I got it from Super Soul, So Jagannath Pandit, thank you very much. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol Devaki Priti.
Hare Krishna, Mata. Thank you so much for your class.
Thank you. You're another one of those amazing expanded hearing about Krishna. She's not the one speaking, but she's arranging for everyone else to speak. That's expanding Krishna. That's seeing Krishna. She's like Krishna's servant by engaging other servants of Krishna. It's just like recently, I had this desire. This is a true story, and I'm going to end here. I had this desire, like strong came. I think it came on Tulsi Vivaha, that I wanted to do some service for Tulsi, for Srimati Tulsi Devi. However, whenever I try to keep Krishna Tulsi in our home, somehow Tulsi always leaves. And so the last time I did that, I said, Tulsi, I will not bring you in the house ever again because I can't take it. You leave, especially when winter comes, Yeah. So I was thinking, I just want to do some service though. What can I do? And so this is a true story. Two days later, or maybe a day later, I got a call from a devotee. And that said, who I've been reading with. And so the devotee said, a pujari is asking for some devotees to adopt a Tulsi plant in the temple and cut her manjaris. And I was like, okay, Tulsi, I guess you're sending me some service. I asked for it. You're sending it, So I went, and I know I've been going a few times. I go and I cut Tulsi manjari, I love doing it. It's just so sweet because, I don't have to bring her home. I could just go there, do that, leave. I don't have to be with anybody either, but I usually one person come with me. So anyway, I'm cutting Tulsi. And I'm thinking, Tulsi, I'm just like one of your servants. I'm just serving you, just trying to serve you, right? So I see Devaki Priti like that. She's like one of Krishna's servants, one of his Bhagwat servants, book Bhagwat, and she arranges. She makes, because that's what Tulsi does. Tulsi arranges for Srimati Radharani, right? So Devaki Priti arranges for others to hear. And while she does that, then she hears. So Krishna, you know, he can use us in so many ways to hear. So let's keep hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mother Raj.
Thank you.
And thank you all assembled devotees for being here today. If there are no more hands up, we're going
Well,
to.
we didn't hear from Hare Chakra. We didn't hear from Hare
Oh,
Chakra. And I do
okay.
need to say something to Hare Chakra.
Okay, Hare Chakra
Um,
Prabhu, you are summoned. You
Hare
have to
Chakra
unmute,
Prabhu.
you have to unmute to open your lotus mouth.
I'm sorry because I'm tied up here.
Okay. Okay. I wanted to say to Hare Chakra that the other day we are driving and I know this is kind of on Zoom, so maybe anyway, we are driving and Hare Chakra is, you know, we had an appointment, so we had to, he was driving and he's talking on the phone. And I'm like, Hare Chakra, why are you talking on the phone? So we had to like, you know, cross him. We had to move, we had to like, I don't know, pass him. I guess that's the word, pass him. Because, and then I said, I'm gonna say to Hare Chakra, Prabhu, we love you so much. Please don't talk on the phone when you're driving.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. I think
Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in the liberated state, the jivas are free from the influence of matter. Okay, be bold. Nitai Gauranga, thank you all very much.
Krishna. So, like I
Please don't
said,
talk on the phone and drive anyone. Please don't do that.
yeah. So, dear devotees, please kindly unmute and we all chant the loudest Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation for our speaker today. Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Raksha Kalpatarabhyascha, Kripa Sindhula Ivacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha.
Hare Krishna.
ISKCON West Africa ki jai.
All bodies to her grace, Srimati VRAJALILA Devi ki jai. Hare Krishna.